One.
We will bring you home. That's President Joe Biden today talking about Americans in Afghanistan. But will they? Are they telling us the truth? And how did it get to be such a catastrophic humanitarian disaster? It's a special late night edition of Rob Nelson Live. Hey, I'm Rob Nelson. I used to host a show on Fox, and now I do a digital live stream called Rob Nelson Live. And my whole mission is to figure out how in this time of division we can find common ground.
Speech, and they're not allowed to do that anymore.
I understand what it's up.
They be focused on rebuilding California.
Oh, it's so true. Come on. This is where this gets real.
He says you're heading.
I wouldn't want to be black and driving in a car.
Right.
Point there, right? Some of what's in this music, you can't sanitize it. All right, guys, welcome to Rob Nelson Live. It's our special late night, Friday night edition. We are talking Afghanistan. And as always, love your interaction, your feedback. If you're out there watching, I want to get into it with you. But I got a lot to say on this. So, Afghanistan, do you care? Do you not care? The Biden administration is banking on the fact, or was banking on the fact, that for the most part, most Americans didn't care. They wanted out of Afghanistan. They want out of foreign wars. Doesn't that sound like Trump's America First policy? But anyway, wanted out and wanted would kind of look past the chaos that happened in the departure. Were they right? I don't know. Do you care about Afghanistan? I think they were wrong. I think if you don't care about Afghanistan, you need to start, not for the reasons you might think. Not forget about that. It's actually like caring about a population of people who are about to get taken over by a horrible terrorist organization that's going to create an Islamic caliphate there. Forget about that. Forget about whether or not it affects our pocketbook. Don't forget about that. It means American servicemen and women are not going to have to go and serve and get injured and died. That's a valid one. But should you care about Afghanistan? Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. But first, let's talk about what happened. I'm not going to do a whole rundown of every event that's happened in Afghanistan. I'm going to do a highlight of what's happening right now. So here's the what happened. Today, if you were watching, President Biden gave a speech surrounded by, finally having the vice president there and top general to address the absolute chaotic mess that has happened in the American withdrawal from Afghanistan. On Sunday, he gave a first speech to address it. In both those speeches, I want to look at what Biden said. I want to look at what Biden's performance as a commander-in-chief was, and I want to look at what Biden's arguments are for what he's doing or not doing. But here's the bottom line. We were at war in Afghanistan for almost 20 years, America's longest war. We were there. It's a war. I think people forget that. We were at war. Thousands of men and women served. Thousands were injured. 2,000 died. We spent trillions of dollars. We literally have been at war for 20 years in Afghanistan. That's an entire generation. And suddenly, we pulled out. Now, I want to be clear. I thought we should have pulled out of Afghanistan a long time ago. I never thought we should have gotten into Afghanistan. 20 years ago, I didn't think we should have. 15 years ago, I thought we should be out. 10 years ago, I argued on the radio, on my radio show, we should be out. We were never going to change Afghanistan. It's this nation-building mentality America has. We'll go in, we'll change it, we'll fix it, we'll somehow do it different, we'll turn them into a democracy, we'll make everything okay. Was never going to happen. By the way, we went in to get rid of the Taliban, to get rid of Al-Qaeda. We went in to do that. We went in to shut down the terrorists. But George Bush had a nation-building mentality. Let's go build a democracy there. I'm not against fostering democracy in the world, but we went in to get rid of terrorists and to do nation building. And we stayed for 20 years, and we were never going to, with all our money, might, and power, we were never going to change Afghanistan. I knew it. I said it. You didn't have to, again, I don't know. I studied international relations. That's not why I knew it. It's just common sense. Like we've never been able to do it anywhere. And Afghanistan, of all places, the Russians failed, the French failed. Everybody keeps going into Afghanistan and failing. But that's not the point. We went in, we spent 20 years. We invested enormous resources, enormous human capital. We put men and women in harm's way every day for 2 decades to fight a war. And last May, President Trump decided we were getting out. We were leaving. We were done. The progressive, the populist, the America first. Let's get out. Let's get out. No more foreign wars. By the way, I'm not a big fan of us being all over the world. So I was for getting out of Afghanistan. I was for us getting out of Afghanistan a long time ago. Trump negotiates a deal with the Taliban. We will have all our troops out of Afghanistan by May 1st. And we will essentially go home. War's over. We're done. You know, we'll keep we've trained the troops. We've trained the Afghan security forces, the military. They're ready. They'll take care of it. You guys go figure it out. It's your country. Biden becomes president. Biden decides, it's a good idea. Yeah. Now, caveat here. If you watch what Biden says in these speeches, he says, Trump set me up to have to do this. You know, I didn't have a choice. Trump kind of put me in this position. It's a little weird. It's true, but he goes on to then say, hey, I had no choice, but it was the right choice, and I made the tough choice as a president to get us out of Afghanistan because we were never going to succeed in Afghanistan. So sort of having it both ways. I'll get to that in a minute. But more importantly, this is the setup. Trump says we're leaving. Biden becomes president, decides to continue with that. He could have changed it. He could have said, no, we're not. He could have put more troops in. They'd already started to draw down. He goes, no, we're going to go through with it. We're going to pull troops out. We're going to move the date back a little, but we're pulling troops out, and we are getting out of there. They do it. They expect somehow for the Afghan military to hold Kabul and much of the country, and the Taliban will slowly make its way back in, and who knows what will happen over the course of 6 months, a year, 2 years. And literally in 72 hours, the Taliban takes over the country, the capital falls, the president flees, and you suddenly see Americans like evacuating the embassy, burning everything they can, papers and data, you know, piling into the airfield in Kabul. And, you know, they're sealing the airfield with troops and being like, we got to get people out of here. President Biden says, you know, the famous quotes that you're going to see if you watch the news. President Biden saying, you know, the Taliban will not take over the country very quickly. Our withdrawal will be smooth and peaceful. That was like a month ago. And the other one, you know, there'll be no Saigon-like moments where you see people being lifted off the roofs on helicopters. It's referring to the end of the Vietnam War where they were airlifting people off the embassy in helicopters. And of course, if you've seen the pictures, it's worse. They're not just lifting people on helicopters. They got jets running down the runway with people jumping on and clinging. By the way, can you imagine how desperate you've got to be to get out of a country? If you are clinging to the wing of a jet, a giant Air Force jet that is going to go 40,000 feet up in the air, you think you're going to survive that ride? I mean, literally, I'll cling to that wing rather than be stuck here because they are going to butcher me and kill me and I'll die a horrible death. But it was like Saigon on steroids. The whole thing was a mess, a chaotic mess. And on Sunday, Biden made it sound like it was just fine. Everything was fine. Like it was just as we planned, he said. Well, we planned for every contingency, and this was to be expected. What? Planned for every contingency, except the one where they would take over in 72 hours, and the whole thing would be a mess. But Biden ain't going to admit defeat. Biden's holding firm. Biden, and again, let me be clear. Biden made the point that he got handed this by Trump. But then he went on to make the point that he did the right thing to pull us out because we needed to get out. We had to leave. And he wants credit for getting us out. But also the buck stops with him, but it's everyone else's fault. It's Trump's fault for giving him the thing to do in the first place, which he thinks was the right thing to do, and he's the tough guy for doing it now. It's the Afghan government's fault and military fault for not standing up, for putting their heads down and running. It's Afghan people who are supported us don't want to leave. It's like everyone's fault but Biden's fault. That's a whole separate issue. So Biden says basically everything's fine. Biden goes back to Camp David. I don't know which part of him and his team thought everything was fine since it was collapsing all around and we were all watching it. And then today comes back and gives another speech. That's the setup. The speech Biden gives today, this is one of the things he says early on in his speech. Crafty, can we play that little clip?
We're going to do everything that we can to provide safe evacuation for our Afghan allies, partners, and Afghans who might be targeted because of their association with the United States. But let me be clear. Any American who wants to come home, we will get you home.
Okay, like, it's comical. I don't know. Okay, any American who wants to come home, we'll get you home. You've literally got thousands of Americans trapped outside the airport. They can't get through. There's security checkpoints. They're trying to get through them. You've got thousands and thousands of Afghan citizens trying to get through those checkpoints and the Taliban blocking them. We'll get you home. But we've only got troops on a little airfield surrounding it. And it's scenes of utter chaos, no matter who you are trying to come in. But we will get you home. I want to talk about Biden as a leader and a commander in chief. I want to go there first and his performance. Now, you might go, oh, you're going to pick on Biden. You know, the right picks on Biden. I'm not on the right. Biden has done an absolute horrible job being a leader through this. Sure, they didn't expect things to fall apart like this, but he claims they did. They planned for it, even though we know they didn't, even though it's clear they didn't. You didn't plan for utter chaos. You're the most powerful military in the world. You could have done all kinds of things to avoid utter chaos. You could have airlifted people out 3 months ago, 2 months ago. Why didn't you? Because they didn't think Kabul would fall. They didn't think the capital would fall to the Taliban in 72 hours, and they thought they'd have plenty of time with our limited troop presence of 2,500 troops to get people out. How much more proof do you need that it failed than we had dwindled down to 2,500 troops? The last ones were going to go, and now we've put in 9,000 more to try to hold things from falling apart. But Biden insists things went just as planned. Everything's fine. Biden's leadership on this is pathetic and offensive. He went back to Camp David for his vacation, and then he came back in the middle of the week and was going to Delaware tonight to vacation again. Only today did they finally decide, oh, maybe it doesn't look so good to have the president going on vacation. Which part of this is the end of the longest war in American history? It's not the most casualties in American history, but it's the longest our country has ever been engaged in a war. It is ending. You are pulling out. There is abject failure, utter chaos, a humanitarian disaster. Thousands of Americans trapped inside Kabul cannot get to the airport. Tens of thousands of Afghan citizens who for 20 years helped us, became our allies, assured that we would protect them, suddenly at risk of being beheaded, having their limbs chopped off, being raped, tortured, burned, hung, brutally killed for working with us. All these people stranded. Our own government has given an advisory that we cannot guarantee the safety of Americans getting to the airport. We can guarantee your safety once you get to the airport, if you can get there. And if somehow you can get through the thousands of people at the gates that they open and people flood through. And Biden's on vacation? He's on vacation? There are one of three possible conclusions. One, Biden is so out to lunch that they are scared to let him have any meaningful time or interaction. Keep him on vacation. Bring him back as little as possible. So he came back Sunday and read a 10-minute speech, 15-minute speech off a prompter, stutteringly, squinting his eyes like this, like he needs glasses, like this to read the prompter and spilling over the words. He didn't even write the speech. Someone else wrote it. All he had to do was deliver it. He couldn't even do a Ronald Reagan and do an A-list delivery. It was like the most pathetic speech. And then he goes back to Camp David. We're exiting the longest war we've ever been in, and there's absolute chaos. Thousands of people clinging to airplanes, trapped, scared. The media coverage, the cameras, you see it, and you're going back on vacation? Can you for 1 second imagine if this was Trump? Switch the roles. Switch the roles. Literally have Trump do and say exactly what Biden said. The media would be eating him for lunch, dinner, breakfast for the next year. The utter incompetence of Trump, the utter disdain of Trump for the military, for the fact that this is a war that we just ended and there's chaos in the withdrawal. We effed up. We didn't realize this would happen so fast, and we're stuck. We have literally now barely are holding an airport, and that's all the most powerful nation in the world can hold after 20 years. They have taken guns, tanks, artillery. They've literally taken millions of dollars worth of weapons, which they'll sell to the Chinese and the Russians, who will then, crack into that technology, or they'll use them. They've taken control. We are exiting in shame, in chaos. And you're on vacation. If that were Trump, they would literally be like, this is why this man should never have gotten within 100,000 miles of the Oval Office. He goes on vacation. And with Biden, it's like, oh, well, he went back to Camp David. What? If Trump said what Biden said, everything went just as planned. When it's utter chaos, people would have gone crazy. If Trump was so dismissive, so arrogant, so insistent that we planned it out, everything's fine, people would have gone nuts, absolutely nuts. If Donald Trump had gone through with his exit plan, had still been president, and this chaos had happened, it would have been proof of his incompetence, of his failure to be able to be a commander-in-chief, of his disdain for the thousands of lives that suffered injury and death that are American lives in a 20-year war, an utter disrespect for the service, for the military, for the thousands and thousands of Afghan citizens who put their lives on the line for us and now are going to die horrible deaths. And he's going on vacation and he's giving these half-assed little speeches. People would be off the friggin' charts. CNN would not stop talking about it. But with Biden, not barely a mention of the vacation, just a reference that he did. I heard someone on CNN say it's not good optics. Not good optics? Why am I talking about Trump? I'm talking about Trump because it's a relevant comparison, because half of this is Biden and half of this is how the media covers it. And my comparison to Trump is, if this were Trump, they would have gone crazy, and they should have gone crazy. Why am I talking about Trump? Because Biden is looking like Trump, and that's not a good thing. Biden sounds like Trump. Biden sounds like Trump's America First approach. Biden sounds like Trump's indifference and arrogance, claiming that allies think we're doing a great job. Everybody thinks we're doing a great job. He said today, I haven't heard anybody who thinks we're not doing a great job. We did everything as planned. Why am I comparing it to Trump? Because Biden was supposed to be the anti-Trump. He was supposed to be competent. He was supposed to not do this stupid, arrogant, defensive bravado. He was supposed to be accountable and transparent. That's why people elected Joe Biden. And what he did today was like a Trump light version. What he did around Afghanistan has been a Trump light version. And it's disgusting. I'd be disgusted if Trump did it, but I'm in some ways more disgusted that Biden's doing it, because that wasn't who Biden was supposed to be, but that is who Biden is. So answer one, they're keeping Biden away because they think he doesn't know what's going on. I don't think that's true. Answer two, they made a cold, calculated, ugly political decision that the American people wouldn't care. Let's just ride this out, let the cameras go for a while, keep the president out of it, and hope it goes away. And they were wrong. A, it's not going away. B, people do care. That's option two. What's option three? Well, maybe there's only two options. They didn't think Biden could handle it, or they made a cold, calculated decision, or Biden just doesn't care. And I don't buy option three. Biden cares. He's calculating. He cares. Biden's argument is completely a mess. We knew what we were going to do. This would have had to happen. I want to play another clip. This is Biden talking about the withdrawal. Crafty, can you play the second clip?
If we had decided 15 years ago to leave Afghanistan, it would have been really difficult. If we decided 5 years ago, if we continued the war for another decade and tried to leave, there's no way in which you'd be able to leave Afghanistan without there being some of what you're seeing now. But what we've done so far is we've been able to get a large number of Americans out, all our personnel at the embassy out, and so on. And thank God, so far, knock on wood, we're in a different position.
I mean, come on. He's utterly lying. Not the first part. Well, no matter when we left, we'd have a mess. That's not true. I think we should have left a long time ago. Whenever we left, I think eventually, sooner rather than later, Afghanistan would have fallen back under the control of the Taliban. But whenever we left, you didn't have to have this kind of mess. You're the competent leader that's supposed to come in and do things right. You guys missed the boat. You didn't see it coming. You didn't see the Taliban coming in 72 hours. And as a result, you were caught off guard. And you didn't think ahead to go, maybe to avoid that, let's get as many Americans and as many supporters and those who worked with America out of the country over a couple months, the last few months, so we don't have that possibility. Claiming this would have had to happen and then claiming somehow we're doing good at the end of that clip, we're getting people out. We could have been, knock on wood, we could have been in a worse position. What kind of worse position could you be in? The impact this has on how the world sees the United States. People talked about how Trump made the world look at us. And yeah, like they looked at us like, what the F? I know Trump supporters would be like, they looked at us like we were great. They looked at us like we were a little unhinged. Our president was a little unhinged. How does this make the world look at us? One, like, this is what we do. We fight a 20-year war and we leave in utter chaos and we leave behind the thousands of people tens of thousands of people who supported us and helped us. That's how we're going to back you up. What does it say to our enemies and adversaries? The U.S. is incompetent. We can't even exit. We literally botched this so badly. And where's the we'll put troops right back in there right now if we have to. Let's put them back in. Put them in for 2 months. Like, we will not. What about the respect to the men and women who died? Urban Achiever 2000, I'll get to your question in 1 second. What about the people who died and served? How do you think veterans feel? Have you talked to veterans? How do you think they feel? They put their lives on the line. They lost their lives, their families. They did everything. If nothing else, President Biden should never have, he should have been back from Camp David on the weekend. And he should have, after that speech, never gone back, never still had a vacation for this weekend. He should have been, I am going to be honest and transparent. We screwed up. We screwed up. We did not expect this to happen. The Taliban moved too fast. We never saw it coming. We should have seen it coming. And now we are in trouble. But we will get people out. We will do what it takes. But we messed up. And by the way, I will sit here right now in this White House in crisis management mode. I am not going back to Camp David and going, things are moving. They're fixing it. What an offense to the people who fought and served and died. And to the thousands who backed us up. And to anyone in the world who looks at what America stands for. So what was the solution to avoid what's happening, Urban Achiever? And I understand being confused with everything you're reading. So the right way to pull out, in my view, is pretty simple. And again, I want to point out, the reason I reference back to Trump is because Biden keeps referencing back to Trump. Sort of making it sound like Trump put him in this position, which Trump did. But Biden could have undone that. He could have said, I'm not honoring it. I'm putting more troops back in. He said, no. We're not going to do that. Since Trump did that, they stopped attacking U.S. troops because we had promised to start pulling out. And Biden went further and said, this was the right thing to do. I'm the guy that had the courage to do it. I didn't want to pass this problem on. In fairness to Biden, he's for a long time thought we shouldn't have been in Afghanistan. He wasn't a big fan of the war. So don't blame Trump. Take risk. You're saying you wanted to do it right. So what's the right way to do it? The right way to do it would have been to condition the drawdown on, which we did, on protecting everyone. That came from the Trump agreement. And two, to start moving our people out earlier. We moved so many troops out, and we didn't start moving our people out because they never thought it would fall. So the right way to do it would have been to think ahead and go, there were intelligence reports that the Taliban would move very quickly and was already advancing. So the right thing to do would have been to get to get our people and get the understand this. We and the Afghan government and military controlled Kabul. We controlled it. We controlled the city. So we could have moved troops. We could have moved personnel and people out orderly ahead of time. Dan Griego, who is a former Force Recon and served in Afghanistan, I believe. It doesn't matter what we expected. There is doctrine for a NEO and how it is to be done. Dan, will you put back in what a NEO stands for and just kind of a quick how that should be done? I'm guessing that has to do with an exodus, right? With getting people out. But if you wouldn't mind putting that in, Dan's a very experienced combat veteran. We don't have a call-in line. Sorry, Urban Achiever. Dan's a super experienced combat veteran with Special Forces, Marines, and has a lot of insight on this. And like I said, served over there. And I'd love to know what you think. Non-combatant evacuation operation. Thanks, Dan. So there's a protocol for non-combatant evacuation operation. Dan, did just quickly, did we do it? I mean, listen, you know more than me. I mean, I'm an outsider looking at this. I didn't serve. My father served in the Army, but I didn't. I mean, did we mess this up? Could this have been done right? And as a veteran, how are you? Are you like, oh, it's fine? Or are you angry? Are you pissed? I mean, just give us some thoughts. I welcome it. I wish you could call in, but at a minimum, just share your thoughts through writing. Yeah, guys, I wish we did have a call-in line. Yeah. Dan, if Dan Griego wanted to get on, Crafty, I guess you could give him a link and he could log in and come on. Dan, if you're interested in that, let me know. We could probably send you a login link and you just log in a computer browser off your phone. But either way, I'd love to hear your thoughts in writing them in. I want to switch gears. It makes you sick to your stomach. You can only mess this up if you wanted to. It's sad. Yeah, I think that's a common perception that people have. I'm going to keep talking for a few more minutes. But Dan, I want to know, just to put on the thing, if you want us to try to get you in and you're in a place where you could talk on a phone or a computer, we can send you a login link. But I think it's going to be tricky. We'd have to get your email and all that stuff. But if you're interested, let me know. Maybe we could have it on another one. But I guess my instinct is, you know, I get worked up about a lot of things, and this isn't political to me. I don't care left, right, Democrat, Republican. You know, everyone talks about America and American values. And somehow our values seem to shift depending on what the situation is. I mean, people are so worked up about people coming over the southern border on both sides, but people who are like, these people are in trouble in their countries. We should let them in. We should be humanitarian. Thousands and thousands fled over the border. Biden was welcoming that. Well, Afghanistan, we literally have thousands of people that we helped us fight a war. And those thousands of people are going to be butchered, chopped up, beaten down by an oppressive, horrible, terrorist military regime that makes women like sixth-class citizens and will literally brutalize anyone who doesn't adhere to what they want. Wow. And yet we're processing people's visas. I don't know. I think it should almost be like anybody who wants to get on the plane, get on. We'll fly you out. We're willing with the southern border. It's just so inconsistent. The concern about women, you know, the administration and people saying, well, we're going to speak up for it. You're going to speak up for women's rights in Afghanistan. A lot of good that's going to do. And the Taliban's laughing at us. And they will develop and foster more terrorism. And anyone out there right now is looking, going, the U.S. is a pushover. You know, they asked about Taiwan, and if Biden said we would never push back on China moving into Taiwan, and then they walked that back. You can see the Chinese already planning. Now's the time to take over Taiwan. No one's going to stop us. I'm serious. 100% serious.
I gave the link to Dan in the comments.
Great, Dan, you've got the link. If you want to jump in for 5 minutes, Dan, would love to have you for a couple minutes. If you want, you could also block your camera if you don't feel like being seen where you are. Would welcome a couple minutes of your feedback on this, based on your combat and your experience. So I'm going to go on this forever, and I'm so wound up. I'm probably like going in 6 directions because I think it's not about your politics. We were furious at the Capitol, at the people who charged the Capitol because they were attacking America. This is a stain on America. I don't care if you think we should be in more involvements, more wars. We were in that war. We have an honor and integrity and obligation to honor what the people that we went there, we went to do, and the people that helped us do it, the thousands who helped us. It was like a thing called honor. And when you screw it up like they did, at least have the decency to admit you screwed it up. At least have the decency to not keep going on vacation and acting like nothing's wrong till the heat gets too hot and you realize, oh, we better have him talk more. And Biden just looks so out of touch. Like he's not in control. Let me talk for a minute about the media. Urban Achiever, right on target, because I'm about to talk about the media. I don't think, yes, it will fade from the mainstream media headlines because everything always does. But I have a feeling that this isn't going to fade as quickly as the Biden administration wants, because it's going to be an entanglement. I don't think they're going to get everybody out by the time they're going to withdraw the troops. Are they going to then withdraw the troops? Are they going to bring U.S. forces in to get people out, Americans who are trapped? There are thousands of Americans trapped right now in that city. And Biden says they can get to the airport. They can't get to the airport. Some can. I mean, they're claiming they can get there. And then the other day, they actually had to send helicopters over to pull 160 people 200 feet in. So clearly, some can't get there. Some can't even get in once they can get there. It will fade from the news, but not without doing tremendous damage. I mean, it's sad. On the one hand, the media's soft coverage, even now I watched CNN and was shocked by how gently they handle it. They do a little pushback. I know if you're on the left, you're like, oh, they're being really unfair to him. But they do a little pushback. It's sort of like he blatantly is lying to you. We foresaw all possibilities and this was bound to happen. You did not. You didn't foresee this one. You didn't plan for this one. Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened. This isn't what the most powerful military in the world had to have happen. Oh, we had no choice. Once we were going to leave, it was going to be chaos and we were going to have thousands of people running all over our heads and hanging on airplanes. Really? That was inevitable? No, it wasn't inevitable. You didn't plan for it. You didn't expect it. You f***ed up. Own it. Own it. And own the consequences of those decisions. Just saying, oh, I feel bad for everybody and we'll get every American out. Will you? Well, what will you do to get every American out? And what about the thousands of people who supported us? What are you going to do for them? You're not getting them out. The Afghan citizens who supported us right now are going to die. And it's because of us. I think that might breed some terrorists. Seriously. I don't think it will stay headline news, but I think it will have a dramatic impact. It's going to impact how our country and how just same way people who didn't like Trump said Trump had an impact on how allies looked at us, how the world looked at us. This will. This says Joe Biden's not the competent leader. I never thought he was. Not the commander in chief, the leader that can really pull America through. And our allies are going, this is America first all over. This is just a different America first. So I think it will impact how we're perceived. I think it will impact foreign policy stuff going forward. It's absolutely going to impact. You may not realize this, but Joe Biden just gave Congress to the Republicans. Between this, the situation with COVID and all the confusion and people not knowing which way's up, left, or center, the way the economy is, inflation heating up, this was the final thing. Congress is going Republican in 2024. And I think a Republican will get elected president. In 2022. And I think a Republican will get elected president in 2024. Biden just sent Kamala Harris's shot down the tubes. This will have an impact. The media can hide and you can say whatever. I'm not being unfair to the media. I think there was more criticism of him than there's been. But look at what he did. I mean, literally, they cannot call him a liar. He's lying. The president is lying. He is lying when he says any American who wants to get to the airport can get to the airport. And then 10 minutes later, his Pentagon spokesman is basically acknowledging they can't. He's lying when they say we prepared for every conceivable possibility. They didn't. They didn't prepare for this one, or this wouldn't have happened. He's lying when he says everything's going fine. He's lying when he says foreign leaders aren't critical of this. He's lying 50 ways from Sunday. But they won't call him a liar. They won't call him out. And the problem with that, it's not politics for me. You're dooming his party because the average person sees. The average person isn't dumb. The average person is actually common sense, pretty smart. People are people. We read, we see. I don't mean to read, literally read. We read things. You watch Joe Biden give those speeches, take a handful of questions and sort of deflect them, and you don't see somebody who's very competent, very in control. You see somebody who's like a stick figure. You see the lie. You see what's going on. You see the fake version of empathy. And people see it and they feel it and it affects them. This is going to hurt Joe Biden and his presidency. Even the questions, he took 5 questions from pre-selected reporters. And if you watch them, one of them was from the AP. And the AP reporter asked the question. And as soon as he finishes, Biden goes, I thought the question was, and he sort of frames it differently. And I'm thinking, right, because I think they had to submit their questions ahead of time. They've said that that's what happens. It was so weird. It's like, what do you mean you thought the question was? He just asked the question. What do you thought the question was going to be something else? Like he asked the question. Oh, I thought the question was. He didn't say anything in between. There was no back and forth. Right? You thought the question. You see him looking at his paper. Did he have what he thought the question was written down? The guy didn't ask it right. It was just bad. Yeah, Angwu 21. I'm personally agreed that I don't think we should have been there for 20 years to begin with. I didn't think, again, going in after 9/11, I don't know. Maybe it made sense then. I felt for a long time the nation building exercise, like I said at the beginning of this, wasn't going to work. We weren't going to fundamentally reshape the Afghan society. I wasn't a fan of staying for 20 years, but that's not the point. The point is we did stay for 20 years. The point is we did fight that war. We did send men and women like Dan Griego into combat. We did ask them to risk their lives and sacrifice their lives. And we asked thousands and thousands of Afghan citizens to help us. We made a commitment to see that through. And when we decided to leave, which fair enough, we've done all we want to do. We're moving on. We needed to ensure that we did it in an honorable way, in a way that protected the people who were there, who had helped us, and that honored the people who served and died and gave blood, sweat, and their lives for this. And we didn't do that. And instead of admitting that, you say the buck stops here, then be John F. Kennedy, Joe Biden. Be John F. Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs and acknowledge you screwed up. Then admit, I screwed up. The buck stops here. Joe Biden, I screwed up. I didn't see this coming. I messed up. Now thousands of lives are at risk. I see that honorable men and women who served in this country feel like they're being betrayed. I screwed up. I'm going to fix it. He didn't say that. He said we did everything as according to plan. Things are going as they should have been. This would have happened no matter when we did it. That's not a leader. That's a coward. That's a coward. All right, I'm going to wrap it up. Urban Achiever 2000. What's the Taliban's final end game once the smoke clears, and why are there so many men escaping without women in photos and video coverage we are seeing? Well, I don't know. Men are escaping because men have an easier time moving right now. It's really hard to move right now through, the Taliban are going door to door. By the way, did you know this? The Taliban, because of our hurried escape, the Taliban have access. They have access to the phone numbers. They have access to a lot of the bank accounts. They know who worked for what and who. They know what every Afghan person did who helped us, and they are hunting them down door to door, and they are making them pay. And they're not making them pay with a checkbook, and they're not making them pay with a beating. They're making them pay with torture, rape, dismemberment, beheading, killing, hanging. They are destroying them and their families as payback. Wow. And that we saw coming and couldn't do anything about it is complete BS. This is not, this is a stain on America, whether you're left, right, if you don't see that, and that stain is not going away tomorrow or next week or next month. That stain's going to have an impact. I hate to say it, but that stain may be worse than any stain those of you who hate Donald Trump think he stained America with. This is a bad one. And the failure to own it and be accountable for it is absolutely disgraceful. And in my book, it's un-American. Thanks for watching. It's Rob Nelson Live.